Additional funding is made possible by NV Energy, Barbara Molaski and Mike Sloan, Nevada State Bank, Cashman Equipment, Station Casinos, and by these sponsors.
She was handpicked by Senator Harry Reid to battle the eventual Republican nominee in Congressional District 3. Tonight, Las Vegas Synagogue Chief Jackie Rosen joins us for her first television interview to talk about her campaign and her views on the issues that matter to you. Plus,
30 years of excellent service and good intentions are overshadowed by a few unfortunate comments and emails that were taken out of context and blown out of proportion.
the Chancellor of the Nevada System of Higher Education is stepping down after the Las Vegas Review-Journal uncovered emails that suggest the system worked to undermine legislative efforts to improve a formula for funding education. Details coming up. Ralston Live starts now.
Discussion, analysis, perspective. It's Ralston Live.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Ralston, and welcome to Ralston Live. Each night on Vegas, PBS, and KNPB, we bring you the news you need to know from the people who make it happen. Before I get to my one-on-one interview with congressional candidate Jackie Rosen, let's get you up to speed on today's political headlines. During a special Board of Regents meeting this morning, Dan Klaich resigned as Chancellor of Nevada System of Higher Education. Resignation comes less than a month after the Las Vegas Review-Journal uncovered emails that suggested a cozy relationship between Klaich and a consultant, and back-and-forth emails that suggested the system of higher ed undermined lawmakers who are looking at ways to fund Nevada's colleges and universities. Saying, quote, he didn't want to be a distraction, Klaich offered his resignation, and this morning, Regents approved an early retirement agreement that allows Klaich to retire June 2nd, quote, for convenience. Means he'll be paid for the full length of his contract, which ends June of 2017. His base salary, $303,000, and that does not include car and housing allowances. But perhaps the priceless part of the deal? No admission of wrongdoing from Klaich. This morning's meeting was full of praise from the Regents and no discussion into those questionable emails. The Regents simply called them, quote, unfortunate. Vice Chancellor Brooke Nelson says she reviewed the emails requested by the RJ and the legislative record as well, and she says she saw no reason to fire Klaich. Before the Regents took a vote this morning, Klaich first thanked them for their defense of the funding formula, saying it was the right thing to do for higher ed in the state, and then he became emotional.
Today, as Regent Stevens indicated, I will walk away from a lifetime of passionate support for higher education. That could have occurred in many ways. The public hearing today, and particularly the kind comments by all of you, allow me to leave proud, with my head high, knowing that I have accomplished something that is appreciated, and for that I am profoundly grateful.
The Regents are suggesting that media coverage of emails that were, quote, taken out of context, aren't they always, are to blame for Klaich's resignation. Of course, the Regents didn't have to force him out if it's the media's fault, right? So why did they? We'll try to get a couple of Regents to explain that next week. Also, big news for Governor Brian Sandoval and his commerce tax. The effort to repeal that tax has suffered what is likely to be a fatal blow. The petition to take the tax to a vote in November is not fit for the ballot, according to the state Supreme Court, which ruled that the summary on the measure's effect, which appears on the signature gathering effort, is inadequate. Here's some of that ruling that came down yesterday. We conclude that the referendum's description is deceptive for failing to accurately identify the practical ramification of the commerce tax's disapproval, and any signatures obtained on petitions with this misleading description are invalid. There go all those signatures. While we recognize that the description of effect is constrained to only 200 words, it is imperative that signers understand the effects and ramifications of their signature and later vote. Of course, Governor Sandoval is happy about the ruling. You can tell in a statement he released Wednesday afternoon, shortly after it came down. Governor said in part, quote, the sponsors of this referendum owed it to the voters to explain the effect signing this petition would have on the state budget, most importantly, students in classrooms across Nevada. Controller Ron Knecht, who's leading the RIP Commerce Tax Pact, so clever with the names, is apparently not giving up. Here's part of his statement. Quote, with all due respect, we believe the Nevada Supreme Court's decision reflects a misunderstanding of the facts about the effect of a commerce tax repeal on the FY 15-16 and FY 16-17 budgets, that's fiscal years, and state spending. As we have shown, there will be no effect on either of them. We are evaluating our options for clarifying these matters, resolving the court case, and getting the required signatures. Of course, this is nonsense. The Legislative Council bureaus estimated the loss of revenue more than $100 million, but really the controller's opinion doesn't matter here at all. The only one that matters is the High Court's opinion, which has crippled the effort to repeal the tax. Now on to tonight's main topic. The crowded race for Nevada's Congressional District 3 features a top state senator, a fiery assemblywoman, the former president of a conservative think tank, and a persistent, perennial candidate with a famous last name. And that's just on the Republican side. As for the Democrats, political newcomer Jesse Spey announced his candidacy for the seat last summer. He appeared on this program. And earlier this year, Senator Reed put forth his choice to run against whoever the Republican nominee happens to be. She's here with me tonight. Jackie Rosen. She's a synagogue leader and a congressional candidate for District 3. That's a seat, by the way, that Congressman Joe Heck's leaving behind to run for the Senate. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, John. I'm really happy to be here.
So thanks for coming on. So I have to ask you the question I think a lot of people are probably wondering. Why, besides the fact that Harry Reid, after asking a lot of other people, to be honest with you, came to you and told you you were the greatest thing since sliced bread, why did you decide to run?
Well, you know, I was raised to believe that we need to leave the world a better place than how we found it. My family moved here 40 years ago. I followed them from college. I went to college in Minnesota. It was 50 below zero there, and it was
Minnesota. I still hear a little
University
of it there.
of Minnesota. I grew up in Chicago, but yeah, not all the way. And it was a beautiful sunny day. Here, 75 degrees, and I moved out west, and I started my career in computer technology as a programmer and systems analyst. First, like we talked about, Summa Corporation, Citibank, Southwest Gas, and a few others. Through that time, I met and married my husband, Larry. He's a radiologist. He works for the last 10 years at the VA. Raised my daughter through public school here. She's a sophomore in college. Took care of my parents and my in-laws as they aged and went through a variety, Social Security, Medicare, hospice, Alzheimer's, lots of different challenges of aging. And through all that time, I also did a lot of philanthropy work. And as a community leader, I've risen, like you said, to be president of the largest congregation, a synagogue in Nevada, Congregation Ner Tamid. I'm extremely proud of that. And so for the last few years, Congregation Ner Tamid, what I've learned is we're really an anchor for the community. So on our campus, people come there. We serve people in good times and in bad. So I have a family that the husband's been deployed multiple times to Afghanistan. The mom is a physical therapist, 2 young kids in elementary school. Now she has breast cancer. He's gone again. Luckily, her mom could move here and help her.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we
Right,
only have a limited
right.
amount of time.
So,
and
so
if
we
I let
just
you
seen
tell your
all-
whole life
no,
story,
no,
I
no,
won't get to
that's
ask
fine.
any
So,
questions. But I mean, something
so-
happened to make you become interested
Well,
in
you know
public
what?
service.
It's the right time of my life to do that. This is an open seat, battleground district. I believe that our voices haven't been represented by the people on the other side in a place that I know and love, and so I felt it was the right time for me to step up and represent the voices here.
Voices haven't, I saw that somewhere else. You said that our voices haven't been represented on the other side. So you think Joe Heck is not represented the district well? Is that what you're
Well,
suggesting?
I think Joe Heck has voted with the Republicans 90% of the time, and what the Republicans have been doing certainly is not opening the door. They're not negotiating, they're not talking, they're just taking the vote to turn their backs and walk away. And every time they do that, there's another person here that is not getting served. So I believe that Joe Heck has not been serving the people the way they need to.
Do you think your newfound mentor, Harry Reid, is responsible at all for the dysfunction in Congress and for the gridlock that exists there, or you blame the Republicans entirely? A lot of people think Harry Reid has something to do with it, too.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If Senator Reid were Senate Majority Leader, we'd be voting on Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court. We'd have a full Supreme Court. If Harry Reid were the Senate Majority Leader, like he was, we'd probably be working more towards comprehensive immigration reform. So I believe Senator Reid has worked over the years. He's had a long career going across the aisle and making sure that things are done right for not only Nevada, but for the country.
So you don't think he's responsible at all? It's all the Republicans. They're completely to blame for the gridlock in Washington.
Well, I think what happens is it kind of builds on itself, and it's gotten out of control. And that's why this election cycle, there's a lot of people that are newcomers to politics, like myself, that want to come and change the equation.
I did look at your website, which is, by the way, noticeably thin. I didn't see much there. I'm sure you actually have some stands on issues.
I do.
We're going to get into that. But one line on there I found curious. You said we're failing our children with low standards of education and unacceptable graduation rates. If you really believe that, and I think a lot of people believe that, then maybe you're running for the wrong legislative body. Maybe you should be running for the state legislature, because that really is what controls that, isn't it?
Well, I think at the federal level, what you do is you set public policy and you determine funding that goes to the states. So it's really a federal-state partnership. And I think not just in Nevada, but across the country, we need to prepare our kids to think for the 21st century jobs. So one of the things I think we need to do is really set those policies and standards that are helping our teachers and our communities do the very best they can to inspire and invigorate our kids so they can go on further.
But you don't think the federal government should have a larger role in education, or do you think it should be smaller? Because most of what happens, the way that, and our kids went to public school here, both of ours, I mean, the policies that are being set there, the money that's flowing there is from the state. The federal government has very little to do with that.
Well, I do think that overarching public policy for American educational standards does need to be set at the federal level. And then at the local level, the states need to do what works for each community. And we need to give them that freedom. But I do think that it is a partnership, because we need our whole future and the future of our country depends on having a certain standard of education that American ingenuity and the American government, we stand for something, we stand for a level of education that means something.
All right, let's talk about a few issues. You know, you've come out of your undisclosed bunker a few times to do interviews, and my friend Megan Messerly over at The Sun, I believe, did one with you. And let's talk about this $15 federal minimum wage and where you really are on that. Bernie Sanders, of course, supports that. Secretary Clinton has expressed support for $12, then $15. I'm not quite sure where she is now. You recently spoke about that issue at a meeting of the Stonewall Democrats, and here's what you said, as reported by The Sun. I think the fight for 15 is a great fight. I think, unfortunately, depending on how the Congress works out, we may have to get there in increments. She added, I think there's been a lot of studies that say $12 is a good minimum wage. There have been others that say 15. I think we actually have to look. A lot of it depends what's the rate of inflation. Isn't necessarily something you can lock in that stays stagnant, because we have a cost of living increases with Social Security every year. Some years it's 3%, some it's 2%. Right. It's tied to the rate of inflation. She compared setting the federal minimum wage to a moving target. If inflation and interest rates go back down, and it might be a different story. If they start going way up, then the $15 could become something else. Okay, speaking of moving targets, you appear to be a moving target on this. Are you not ready to join the fight for 15?
I am ready to join the fight for 15, and I do want to fight for 15 because the minimum wage hasn't gone up. And what was for me the minimum wage when I was in college and working and putting myself through school, those things aren't equivalent now. We've really stagnated. So I think the fight for 15 is a great fight. We need to tie it to the cost of living. And what happens when we raise the minimum wage is, I think that everything starts with our families. When we strengthen and stabilize families and we give them self-respect, what happens? They can stay in their same apartment or home. The kids go to the same school. Maybe they don't go with a hungry belly or a free lunch. They can learn, they can grow, they can become productive citizens. So I think fighting for 15 and making sure that we raise families up to a place that they can have self-respect elevates all of our communities.
I guess I wonder, though, Ms. Rosen, how far you go? Why 15? And what is the impact on small businesses of raising the minimum wage so high? I know you said you do it gradually. Most proposals call for it to be done gradually. In case people don't know, there's a bifurcated minimum wage in this state now, but it would essentially double under what you're suggesting is the right policy. You don't think that's going to hurt business at all?
Well, I think you have to look at it, but if people are making a living wage, then they're also spending it they're spending it at the grocery store, they're spending it at the gas station. Maybe their kids aren't getting free breakfast or free lunch. I think that it all goes to build community. So I think you have to look at it in a broader sense, because when we strengthen families, That's the backbone of America, family by family, and that's the first way we can do that.
You're not worried at all about the impact on business, though. I mean, you're raising these wages up significantly. What do small businesses do who have to essentially, according to what you and others want, essentially double what the minimum wage is?
Well, I think by going in incremental ways that we allow for the time for all that to be absorbed into the economy.
Okay. Let's talk about health care. You've talked about the Affordable Care Act. You said it's a good first step. I think you mentioned, or I know that your husband is in that.
He's a radiologist.
He's a doctor. He's a radiologist. Let me show people more of what you had to say about the Affordable Care Act. There have been a lot of things in there that are really great. This is from the Sun, by the way. I do think we have to look at some of those things that work, improve those, and some things that haven't worked so well. We need to modify those. She called the ACA a good bill, adding the improvements may be necessary as more details emerge about the bill's impact. Probably need to work on negotiating prescription drug prices, the power of economy of scale with a large group, and level some playing fields there. Okay, you would have voted for the Affordable Care Act had you been in Congress?
I believe I would have, yes.
So you're talking about, for the time for it to have an impact. It's been the law of this land for quite some time now. It was passed in the Obama administration's first year,
right.
Partly thanks to your mentor, Harry Reid. So what is it that hasn't settled in? What needs to be improved?
Well, I think one of the things we need to do, I'm speaking as a computer programmer here, there's always ways to make people work smarter and not harder. I think there's ways to streamline the process for the exchanges so people can get through easier. They can get access to health care easier. I think we can look at a lot of the processes that have been a little bit cumbersome for folks.
Well, of course, the rollout was terrible, and there have been problems.
Right.
And
Right.
as a computer
Right.
expert, you understand
Right.
that they didn't set
Right.
those sites up either
Right.
federally or
Right.
here in Nevada. But that's a process thing. What about the policy itself? Does the policy a good? Does it need to be tweaked? Are there certain things in there you don't like?
I think one of the things that we can talk about is the health care tax that's going to come out in the next few years. I talked to a lot of union folks, and that's going to hurt them in some negative ways. So I think that's one thing we can look at, maybe modifying in the bill to improve people going.
You're talking about the culinary union and others
Right,
have the
right.
excise tax.
Right.
So you agree with their position on that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Let's switch gears and talk about another issue that has come up and that you've talked about, and that's the Iran deal. And I really want to try to pin you down on where, as you know very well, the deal's not just been divisive in America, but especially in the Jewish community, as I'm sure you've heard from some of the congregants at Near to Mid, right? Now, Harry Reid supports the deal. Here's a response that you gave when asked about this at a meeting of the Stonewall Democrats. Right now, it's what we have. It is what we have to work with. Being a private citizen, when all that happened, you only know what you can only know, what you know from TV and the newspapers. I absolutely think that we cannot trust Iran. We have to be sure that we hold their feet to the fire in every instance. We need to be sure that we keep shining that spotlight. They're some of the leading sponsors of terrorism. She said she thought the president, quote, made the best deal that he thought he could at the time, or he probably wouldn't have made it. So do I take from that last comment then, Jackie Rosen, that you support the deal?
You know what? I wouldn't have voted for the deal.
You wouldn't have?
No, I don't think I would have.
Why not?
Because I believe Iran is the leading leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. We cannot have a nuclear Iran. That is, to me, one of the scariest things. So I don't think I would have voted for it because I'm not sure that we can hold their feet to the fire. I'm not sure that I would have wanted to unfreeze all the billions of dollars in assets that's going to happen. I think when I say we have to shine a light on them, what I mean is we need to follow the money. Because just like if I follow you and watch where you use your credit card, I can tell about what's important to you. We're going to tell about...
You haven't been doing that, have you?
No, maybe that's next.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe that's next. But we'll be able to tell about Iran. Where are they spending the money? Who's investing in them? We need to watch them. We need to be sure that they are not getting a nuclear bomb.
That's a pretty clear position, different than what you said at this meeting. Has something changed, or did they just not ask you the right question?
Well, I guess as I've had a chance to think about it and clarify it, it hasn't changed. I did say I want to hold their feet to the fire. I want to look at where the money goes, and I don't want a nuclearized Iran.
President Obama and Harry Reid both said, of course you can't trust Iran, but this deal is not premised on trusting Iran for some of the reasons that you suggested.
Right.
But as you seem to imply there, it was the best deal the president thought he could have gotten, and that he doesn't think this is going to result in a nuclear Iran. You're afraid it will.
Well, I think that we have to watch very carefully. I'm never going to trust Iran. I guess that's the real answer. I'm never going to trust Iran. Does it mean that the president doesn't try to negotiate and try to do the best that they can in the situations they have to, maybe that's true. But I never will trust Iran.
But you would have been against him on this.
I believe I would have, yes.
I may have missed this, and you can correct me if I have. Have you endorsed either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
You know, I caucused for Hillary, and it looks like she's going to be the nominee, and I'm proud to stand on the ticket with her. But I'll tell you this, between her and Bernie, there really isn't. The difference between her and Bernie are not much different. What's really...
Tell Bernie that.
Tell Bernie, yeah. But what's really different is look who's the top of the ticket on the other side. There is a Grand Canyon between the Democrats and the Republicans. So I'm proud to stand whoever the Democratic nominee, and it looks like with the numbers it's going to be Hillary, and I'm proud to do that.
Why did you choose Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders?
Because I believe Hillary has a lifetime of experience working for children, for children's defense. She spent 8 years in the White House. She was a senator. She's traveled all around the world talking to world leaders. And she's a mom and a grandma, and I think that she really has a lifelong experience in doing this, having a calm, cool, collected head, being analytical, and those are the kinds of things that are important to me.
A couple other quick issues that I know you've talked about a little bit, at least in broad contours, and that's fighting for seniors, which I think everybody who's ever run for office that I've talked to wants to fight for seniors, protect Social Security and Medicare. How?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story. So for 4 or 5 years, like I said, I took care of my parents and my in-laws, and I was really glad I could be an advocate for them. Through cancer, Alzheimer's, my dad had care at the VA, my mother had terminal cancer, my mother-in-law eventually got Alzheimer's. I've been to every assisted living and rehab hospital in Las Vegas, and what I learned through personal experience, it was probably the roughest time in my life, and I was really glad I could do it, is how vulnerable seniors are. My father-in-law, who was a civil engineer, built bridges for the city of Los Angeles for 50 years, could no longer use a computer or a mouse or read the screen. How can we voucherize Medicare for people like that? It just doesn't make sense. So some of the things I want to do is be sure that we don't take this broad brush and say, well, you can just go online like you're 20 years old and just pick and choose like you do a hamburger or something online shopping. I want to be sure to protect them, protect seniors as they move into older age.
You're not worried about the sustainability of the program? Obviously, it's not going to go away tomorrow, but decades in the future, it's not going to be sustainable, perhaps. There are a lot of people who think that, Congress always waits until there's a crisis to do something, and then it's too late. So do you just do nothing?
Well, I'll tell you, I just heard that there's more millennials than baby boomers now. So I think there's going to be a lot more people paying in, and the scales are going to tip. But I also think there's probably a few things that we can do. We can look at some ways that we're not again, I guess I'm the systems analyst. I look at some of the ways we're not streamlining things, the ways that we can negotiate Medicare drug costs, like I spoke about earlier, to get economy of scale, how many people are on blood pressure, chemotherapy, bring those costs down, turn it back into the system. I think there's a lot of things we can do like that if we look at it. It's a big, complex system.
Real quickly, we have about a minute left. I know you've also talked about the big issue that's been out there in the state about solar energy. And you think the decision that the Public Utilities Commission made was a bad decision?
Well, I know that they've had a lot of conversations, and now they've all come together to rework what they're doing. I do think promises were made, but what I really think about energy, it's a three-pronged issue. We have the environment. We need to be sustainable. We have people who want to have a reduction in their energy bill, and we need, on the Nevada Power side or on the public energy side, we need to have a secure, safe, and resilient grid. Somehow there has to be the way, as we move forward in this technology, to make those partnerships that work right. America needs a secure, safe, resilient grid. That has to be there. We also want to reduce our energy footprint, sustain our environment, reduce our energy bills. I'm hoping that we can come together in a consensus to move forward in the future for that.
Jackie Rosen, I really appreciate your willingness to come on the program. Wish you the best of luck on June 14th, and I'm sure you'll come back and debate your opponent right here in the general election. Will you
absolutely will.
All right, that's on tape. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And on the next Ralston Live, both the Democratic and Republican state conventions are on this weekend. Why did they schedule them on the same day? I can't go to both. Ugliness on both sides is palpable. On Friday, sit down with a couple of progressive state lawmakers who are supporting different presidential candidates. We'll talk with them about the Democratic Donnybrook. It's in the next Ralston Live. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great evening.